So the next thing I want to jump to is, again, because our time is, okay, we're getting close here. I have a little bit more. Next thing I want to talk a little bit about is actually about how to use externs with haXe. And that might seem a little bit of a jump, but if you had saw in that last example that you saw that we had I was using jQuery, or actually Mike in that example was using jQuery. And this is a simple example I had made not so long time ago. And so you're thinking, well, how do you get jQuery in haXe? Like what's going on there? How do you just automatically have these JavaScript libraries available to you? It's magic. Well, it almost is kind of magic how they did it. They did a really cool thing. There's a concept called Externs, and that basically is that if you're familiar with JavaScript, as soon as you tell the browser to load in a library, it's going to download the JavaScript library into the browser, and it's going to make it available to you throughout the life cycle of that browser session. And so all you need to do is to have haXe. Okay, well, I need to make sure that my generated JavaScript code can see that library. And I want to actually make sure that I have type safety here in haXe, and I have auto-completion. So we do that with something called Externs. Now, I'm using, if you're familiar with Mr. Doob, I'm using actually his 3.js library, which is again, this is a JavaScript canvas example here. And it's a very powerful, even Google uses 3.js. If you guys saw that that maps demo that was floating around that Google put out last week, it was actually using 3.js for the animations. So what's happened is that, and I'll just kind of show it here. You have the 3.js library right here. So again, I'm having the JavaScript in here, and I'll just open up this HTML guy here. This is actually this rotating cube right there. Source code for that is just this. It's very simple. So you can see that I'm loading everybody in the 3.js library. So he's in there. And then what's happened is that with these externs are basically, and I'll open up some of these up. These are just like over here on the right. Let me just make that a full window here. This is what the extern files look like. So this is actually how you would be able to talk to an existing JavaScript library. And people make these extern files for you. So these are hex files that just mimic the API of a JavaScript library you would want to work with. So again, yeah, it's definitely a different example or a different way of working if you've never done haXe or have a similar experience with other languages. So I'll just kind of give a very brief example here. So let's see, renderer. So you can see that, okay, so my renderer here, you can see it's a canvas renderer. So that's the type. It's a type of canvas renderer. So how am I getting, this is the auto-completion option for that JavaScript library. Well, how am I getting that? Well, it's because of the canvas renderer extern, which again, it's just these dummy files that exist that you put on your source path. And you can actually see that now these are the methods that are actually part of that JavaScript library. So that's as far as I'll go with the externs, because again, that's, as you can tell, I could spend an hour just talking about the externs. But it's really important to know about how you would work with existing JavaScript libraries, because I know that was one of my first questions that came up to me when I was working with haXe. I'm like, okay, cool, I can work with the canvas in a real easy way. However, how do I use, there's just tons of existing JavaScript libraries out there, and the way you would work with those is by creating these extern files and adding that to your source path, and then you'll have the auto completion for you, and you actually will have the type safety there.